Sure.
Casey Heverling,
How are you, buddy?
as I live and breathe, I'm doing well. How are you, man?
I'm all right.
Look at you. You're looking good down there in San Antonio. They treating you all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good, good.
Yeah,
Listen, I know you're a busy guy. I really appreciate your time. I've been trying to connect with some of our sport management professors to open our students up to some new experiences, and this is part of my contribution as a graduate of the program. So I'm really grateful to you. Um,
absolutely. Happy to
before
help.
before we get started, I'd like to send you a little something for your time. Can you give me a best mailing address for you? Is it the arena?
It is. You don't have to send me anything, though. I'm happy to help.
No problem at all. I'm happy to do it. Let me just making sure all my tech is working here correctly. Can you hear me okay?
Yep,
Okay. All right. And so VP and General Manager of Spur Sports and Entertainment. Great.
that's correct. Yep.
All right. So we are recording now. So I'll just do a quick intro of you. We'll get into our questions, and then I will let you go back to the life that you've got going on down there, my friend.
Okay.
All right. Let me just pull up the questions. Great. Okay, so we are live with Casey Heverling, Vice President and General Manager for Spurs Sports and Entertainment. Casey is a former colleague and mentor of mine. I'm really grateful to Casey for joining us today. This is a presentation for Dr. Peter Smolyanov and SMS students here at Salem State University. I know Casey from time spent with Spectra Venue Management. In a previous interview we did with Mike Scanlon. Mike also works with Spectra as well. Casey has since relocated again to San Antonio. So Casey, for the students that are joining us, can you just talk a little bit about what you do and kind of how you ended up in the business that you're in?
Sure. So my day-to-day responsibility is really to serve and look after a pretty large team here at the AT&T Center that oversees the facility operations, the event operations, some booking and just the execution of all the events and content that we host at the arena, and then of course maintaining the upkeep that an arena needs, which is a 24/7 job. And to the second part of your question there, how did I get into this business? I obviously growing up had a deep interest in sports and what it meant to me, and kind of forming my personal value set. And then I saw what it could do to the community around me as I grew in the industry and grew, around sport and entertainment. And so as I finished my academic career, I realized that I didn't want to let that go, that passion go. And I found a way to pursue that further, using my business degree that I got from Westchester University. I discovered this whole new world of sports business, sports management, which I didn't know what it was at the time, but I was passionate enough to continue to pursue that and not wanting to kind of let go of that. And then I just started networking and found, stumbled my way into really great mentors and really great situations and absorbed as much as I could. And I think that's what ultimately opened up the door for me. And then I just haven't really looked back and been having a ball ever since.
And I know the kind of your professional background started in the area of operations, got into facilities, event work, and then obviously now in your role as general manager and VP for Spurs Sports. Can you talk a little bit about what a day in the office looks like for you?
Yes. So
Sure, it's never the same day twice.
it's never the same day twice, but there is a common thread throughout, and that's people. My evolution that you just so succinctly went through has brought me now to a role where my job is almost 100% about the people that I serve as a leader. So I spend 10 to 12 hours a day in some way, shape, or form, guiding, mentoring, supporting, encouraging, um, the team, the folks on my team. That's what I do on a daily basis. And I'm very fortunate to have a team here that they're very good at what they do and their specific expertise. And so my job, as I tell them, if they were here, they'd roll their eyes because I say it all the time, but my job is to remove obstacles, provide resources and support, and get out of their way. And so that's what I try to do on a daily basis. People come to me with their challenges or their opportunities, and I help them navigate around that.
And one of the things I appreciate is that as you kind of were talking through um, how you got to where you are, you had talked about seeing and identifying the role that sports and entertainment can play in the community in which it serves. So in your capacity as GM and VP for the Spurs, in your particular region, because I know it's a pretty lively area, can you talk about the role that both your tenant teams, your facility, and then kind of any other ancillary pieces to the property play in kind of the economic development and impact for your area?
Absolutely. So for those that aren't familiar with San Antonio, the San Antonio Spurs are pretty much the only game in town when it comes to major league sports, right? NBA, NFL, MLB, what have you. So it's basically a religion. It's this beautiful mesh between the working blue collar kind of culture in San Antonio and how, Coach Pop and RC Buford and everyone that's built the legacy of the Spurs, how they committed to playing. Those two things resonate with each other, right? The team and the organization feeds off the community, and the community likewise. So that's the foundation that's been set here with how we're kind of interwoven with the community, the fabric of the community. What is maybe a little bit more, what is still building and growing as the market grows rapidly, one of the, the biggest, fastest growing markets in the country right now, is our live entertainment and what other events and content we have in an arena like this, which is where I get really excited as a facility guy, to bring folks together around music, around other sports. Like we just had PBR here over the weekend. Rodeo and bull riding is a big deal here in Texas. But all the way to like family shows, which I absolutely love and wish we could do more of. We just had Dude Perfect, the trick shot guys out of
YouTube
Texas A&M.
sensations.
Yeah. So they have their live show, and it was amazing to see all the kids have a great time. So I've always spoken about the AT&T Center as being our town square. It's what brings people together. It's why we do what we do. And that's one piece. So not necessarily the economic piece, but the community piece. We like to act as that town square. And, no matter what is going on outside this place, when you come here, our mission is to provide moments that excite, memories that endure, and strengthen the relationships in our community. That is our purpose. And so everything we do is trying to achieve that. Now, having said that, economic drivers, right? We employ on any given event night. Tonight we have our first preseason game for the Spurs. We'll have roughly 1,200 to 1,300 employees in the building. So we're a pretty large employer for our community, and our type of work gives a paycheck to folks that desperately need it. So we see that as a big piece of the economic driver. But bringing in over 3.5 million people onto the grounds between the San Antonio Rodeo, which is housed here, Spurs, and all of our other events, is a huge economic driver for what the city has to offer. And we play really well off of all of the other big things we have here, like Fiesta and some of the other big citywide events. So I would say that without having the Spurs and this type of content coming to the city, our economic environment here would be drastically different.
And so as you as you mentioned, in addition to just the Spurs games that are happening there, obviously, arenas are home to, like you said, family shows, concerts, those kinds of things. Does your area or in your experience there, have you been approached kind of with any maybe non-traditional new ideas as partner of the venue or anything like that? And what are some of the considerations that you make before deciding whether or not you want to host and either own it or in a partnership capacity?
I'm smiling extra wide because I'm literally right before our conversation was presented with a unique opportunity. Now I can't go into the details on that, but I will speak to what the conversation we were just having around it. Is it right for the organization? Is it the right fit for what we all of the other things we have going on? Do we have the bandwidth to succeed and meet the standards that we set internally for ourselves if we're going to take on a project? Those are the things that come to mind right away as we're approached with opportunities that happen all the time. Then you get into some of the more basic business, like what's the ROI on this? How long will it take for this to be successful? And typically it's someone bringing an outside idea, a concept for another league, another franchise, another event type. And then you have to do your research, right? What is that something that's going to have some staying power? Or is this just maybe not ready yet in terms of a dream that someone had and they're not ready to bring it to market yet? Those are all things you have to wash through very quickly to determine if it's something you want to pursue. But we always start with, is it a good fit for us, both with our values and then the mix that we have of all of our other properties currently.
And one of the things that I appreciate from our time together that we spent in Hartford, Casey, was that as a leader, you would walk me through something as simple as a pro forma process when evaluating whether or not an event is going to be potentially worthwhile as a pursuit for a venue. So for our students that are watching, familiarize yourself with pro formas, get comfortable with Microsoft Excel, because you'll be using them quite a bit as you get on in your event career. But you've come up again, starting in operations. Now you're running this premier facility in San Antonio, Texas. With the benefit of hindsight now, what do you think is one thing you wish you had known when you were starting, however long ago it was?
That's a great question. Because there's not just one thing, right? There's many things that hindsight provides, some clarity on. I wish I would have known that how important the management of, like, the responsibility you take on as a manager of a person and how much that is a part of what we do. You think about relationships, you think about teamwork. When you think of like sports business, right? It's fun. It's stressful at times, fast paced. It's never the same. So you're always explaining, I just explained right there, the environment you work in. But when you start working your way towards a leadership role, which, I would imagine a lot of the students are aspiring to be one day, you cannot overestimate how important it is to manage someone and lead people. Like, I just feel like I would have maybe approached things a little bit differently in my early career if I knew how big a part of that my later career that would be.
And so that really dovetails nicely into the next question I wanted to ask you of, if you're talking to a room full of college students now, kind of identifying for them that are still in the early stages of their career, what's a piece of advice that you would give? And then if you can talk a little bit about back in your earlier days, or even currently, a bigger obstacle or challenge you had to overcome and what it taught you.
Yeah, I'll take that second one first, if that's all right.
Sure.
The biggest obstacle professionally would be learning how to manage people. And when I say manage people, I needed to learn what type of leader and manager I wanted to be or needed to be. Not even wanted to be. It was in there somewhere and I had to find it. And I had to find it quickly. You referenced earlier, I started in operations. My first job was a manager of about 600 plus people at Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia, fresh out of grad school. I didn't know what type of manager I wanted to be or needed to be. And so the biggest obstacle, and it's an obstacle I don't think, or challenge that will ever go away, is what type of leader I need to be for my people. What I do know now, and I think I've overcome, is I know who I am and what type of leader I want to be. Now I need to see how do I tweak that and mesh that to be the best leader I can be for my folks that I work for. The advice I would give college students now that are going to get into this business, I'll tell you why one of the recipes to my success, relative success, is I've always made a concerted effort to put myself in the room of people I wanted to become one day. I always wanted to absorb, even if I had no business being in that room. Respectfully, I make sure I was able to be in that room and just learn and listen and absorb even if I wasn't contributing to the conversation or the discussion at the time. And the more I found myself in those rooms and listening to the great minds of our business, which I was fortunate enough to be around, the more I started thinking like them. Or I would say, well, here's what I would do. And then I would go back and rethink it again. Well, what would they say? And you start to mold your path based on what you're learning and what you're seeing. So my advice would be never pass up an opportunity to speak with, go get coffee, go to a seminar, listen to recordings, or, you know, if you're fortunate enough to work for these types of folks, get in those meetings, get in those collaboration groups so that you can even at very least just listen to how they think, what their visionary kind of minds, how they work. That would be my biggest advice for success.
Certainly very, very useful advice for, I think, a lot of the kids that are watching us. So, Casey, if it's all right, I wanted to ask you one other quick question. You know, you've been in a number of different venues now over your career, and when you're looking at economic development and opportunity, right, a certain piece of that comes with having an understanding of the financing and funding of these operations, right? So I'm sure in your experience, you've probably got a little bit of a mixture of private and public operations. Can you talk a little bit about when developing a facility, a complex, whatever the case may be, in your experience, some of the work, whether it's working with local legislators, whether it's private ownership groups, whatever the case may be, and in those areas?
Absolutely. So on the public side, that work is largely done through legislators, through your elected officials. Those conversations are often trying to shed light on, bring some exposure to the benefits of having a facility like this in your community. Because sometimes, especially in those conversations, it doesn't always look like a profit center, right? It's not always about the dollars and cents that happen in that building, but it's everything kind of what we were talking about earlier, that the synergies, if you will, to use a business buzzword, of having something like that, a facility like that in your community, what it could be as a civic service. Those conversations happen often when there's public money involved with a facility like the AT&T Center. If you looked at our books right now, the AT&T Center loses, I won't say a number, but a lot of money. But it's the franchises, of course, Spurs. It's the events that come in that help offset that, but it's also all of the other small businesses. It's the taco stand down the street. It's the new restaurant that just opened, 3 blocks over, called Ball Hogs, an amazing concept to have right to a basketball arena. A barbecue joint right down the street. Those little businesses, all the way up to our big corporate partners, they benefit from that synergy of having this facility in operation and never having the lights off as much as possible. So that's the public conversation when we're dealing with local government, and trying to get public dollars approved for building or renovating, which is what we are here. We're actually a county building owned. We as Spurs Sports Entertainment lease it, long-term lease, to operate it. When you're talking about private funds, it becomes more of a business proposition for sure. It's something I don't have a ton of experience at. I've largely been in venues where there's a tie to public money. But I will say the industry is trending towards privately funded venues. They're very rarely now will you see a brand new building, I would say, in the NBA, NHL, or NFL type of building being built with a lot of public funds. So that I can't speak to in great detail, other than they look at it as pretty much strictly a business proposition.
And I think too, a lot of, again, as you mentioned, the ancillaries, right? The hotels, things like parking, stuff like that. From an additional public or private perspective, some of these towns will also have deals in place with hotels where the hotel will have to pay a certain percentage of an overnight tax or things like that. So there's additional revenues for the counties themselves by having facilities like this existing. So it really is a multifaceted approach that you know, if you're kind of on the outside looking in, you don't necessarily realize the impact
Yeah.
that an arena can have in a community for sure.
And to that point, Mike, the San Antonio is a huge hospitality tourism town, huge, more than I knew before I moved here. And that community it really comes together when we need to fund, whether it's a new hotel, a new tourism amenity in town, or the AT&T Center. We all understand that we need each other to keep this. It's the third largest economic driver in the city behind healthcare and military, also military USA here, with all of our forts. The hospitality industry here really comes together and tells each other's stories. And that is something that, at least in the cities I've been in, has been really unique. And we have a funding mechanism where tourism, it's called our hotel occupancy tax. It's paid, all of the funds that go into that bucket are what the county uses to fund venues like the AT&T Center or a new hotel, or, you know, what have you. All of that bucket gets filled by tourism dollars. So only folks that come here and visit, their tourism tax, if you will, goes into that bucket. And so it's a really unique, maybe not so unique, but a really efficient funding mechanism to keep that tourism and hospitality wheel moving. Is the more people we bring in, the more money goes into that bucket, the more we can fuel the infrastructure, the facilities, the content, and the more tourism we bring. So it kind of creates its own flywheel.
Yeah, it's almost like its own compounding interest, more or less.
Yep.
So last question before we let you go.
Sure.
You know, you're a young, aspiring event facility marketing professional interested in working for Spurs Sports and Entertainment. What are you looking for in someone that wants to be a part of your team?
Character, above all else. I think we have a pretty unique culture here, that's deeply rooted in our values of integrity, success, and caring. If you're here and successful, it's because you align with those values and you have unquestionable character. Beyond that, we work very hard, and like everyone else in the industry, we work extremely hard and are passionate about what we do, for our community, and for the 18,000 people that will be coming in this building tonight. Like, that's what we work so hard for. So character, work ethic, and then I think it takes a little bit of that savviness, right? The same savviness that you seek out these rooms and folks that I was talking about earlier to go speak with and hear and absorb their way of thinking. Those types of thoughts and savviness are what's going to get you ahead, not just here, but anywhere in the business. So I would say those three things.
Good enough. Well, listen, Casey, really appreciate all your time. I know it's a busy time of year for you. Want to thank you for joining me today. Hopefully we'll be able to get you in a classroom in the future, maybe if you have some time.
Yeah.
Want to wish you the best of luck with the Spurs in the upcoming season. And thanks again.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
All right.